Genesis 6:4. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bare children unto them. The same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Today is episode 29, the Nephilim, giants or demons? Let's get to the bottom of that. Hey guys, real quick before we start the show, wanted to let you know kind of how we do things around here, how we do the podcast. If you've ever wanted to make a podcast, we use Spotify. Spotify's got a platform that lets you make a podcast really, really easy. And then they let you distribute it everywhere and even earn some money if you want a little change, cha-ching in your pocket. And they do it all in one place, and it's for free. That's the exciting part. It's called Spotify for Podcasters. Here's how it works. They let you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or your computer, and then they'll let you distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. And if you want to take your conversations to the next level, they have really cool features like Q&A and polls, and those are the things that really get people and your fans talking about things. So with Spotify for Podcasters, you can also earn money, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And the best of all, like I said, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since I've discovered it, I feel like the options of the Q&A and the video options and the polls has really let me take the creativity of my podcasting to another level. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started today. Dice Man Enterprises exclusively presents a talk show that will get to the bottom of things once and for all. And now here's your host for Let's Get to the Bottom of That, three weirdos on a mic. Come on in, boys. The water's fine. Welcome into another episode of Let's Get to the Bottom of That. I'm Byron Dice, your host. With me, I got Jason.
Yo.
And Mike.
What's up?
Is in studio. What's up, fellas?
What's up?
Well, today is a good one. We've been excited for this one since we put it on the catalog. The Nephilim.
True. Yep.
We've been wanting to talk about this one for a while. And also we have in studio a world renown, men of renown.
Yeah.
This guy is all over the place in the world of Nephilim. This is Jacob Russell.
So, thank you, guys.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me.
Well,
Loose,
do we have anything
very loose with that title there.
What?
Hope we don't check receipts.
Oh, we should.
We do.
We know Jacob from going to church. I met Jacob about 2 or 3 years ago. Met at church, and we just hit it off. And we talk about, he's a guy that likes to talk about weird stuff, just like we do.
Yep.
The three weirdos on the mic, he's that guy as well. And since he had a lot of knowledge, when I brought the subject of Nephilim up, I was like, hey, let's get this dude on the show. He's going to bring a lot to the table.
This is my first time getting like in depth with this topic.
Really?
Yeah, I have a friend that kind of overviews it with me all the time because he's really into it. And I just go, it's not important to me. But then he told me cool stories like the one with the Navy SEALs in the caves and stuff, and I thought it was pretty cool.
That's a good story.
Yeah, it is. It's really, it's a wild ride. I've always been a huge history nerd, and then my church in my hometown, we had another pastor speaking, and he started talking about, he was actually going through that verse in Genesis 6 and brought up Nephilim, and brushed over it quickly, but said, when he said they were the same, became the mighty men which of old, the men of renown. In my mind, it clicked. I was like, man, I wonder if that's like Greek gods, Roman gods, like, were they made up? Is there something behind that? And it just started a rabbit hole, and it's been eye-opening.
I think a lot of people that know a lot about this topic have different views. And we've talked about this before, us two or us three, about like the origins of Genesis and stuff like that. And so it's going to be interesting how you tie that all in,
right,
with the Nephilim.
Well, I will say this. We'll start at a high level, and then we'll start digging deep. Specifically, the reason we wanted to bring in, and I brought in the intro with Genesis 6:4, is because that's where it came from. Now, I think the King James Version does a disservice when they translated the word giant, because in the original Hebrew, that is actually Nephilim. So I think sometimes King James messes up translations. So
I don't know why we...
I don't either. But anyway, we know that the Nephilim were giants. And I think I'm going to read a quote here from Douglas Elwell, which will kind of sum up what we're going to talk about today. And this is what I believe this is fact. The Nephilim were a gigantic offspring that resulted from the union of the fallen angels, which were quoted the daughters of men, that grew into a tremendous stature and possessed of a titanic arrogance and the will to power that rivaled that of their satanic fathers. Now, the satanic fathers were, of course, the sons of God, which are mentioned in Genesis 4. These were called the Watchers. There was about 200 angels that came down. They got kicked out. They were called the Watchers.
Okay,
I've been reading that Enoch mentions the Watchers.
Came down to Mount Hermon.
Yep, Mount Hermon.
That's important.
And that's kind of where we're starting. That's where we're starting with this topic of the Nephilim. And that's really what I believe, is because the whole goal of this thing that happened was what God prophesied to Adam when he said, the woman's seed is going to destroy you. And so what does Satan have to do? He has to destroy that seed. And this is exactly what he tried to do. Now, if you think about it,
That seed being the bloodline.
that's right. Fallen angels, if you think about it, mated with fallen humans.
Okay.
That's important. They were both fallen creations. So when you put that together, you get what we see was the Nephilim.
So, kind of piggybacking on that, I've heard different ideas that the angels that had sex with the humans,
Yeah.
they were, and there's another theory too, that Adam and Eve weren't the first humans, and that there was humans before. Have you ever heard that, Jacob?
I have
that there
heard
was
that
humans
theory.
before that, but God took Adam and Eve and put them in the garden, and there were human beings outside of the garden that were living on the earth, and those are the people that
Nephilim.
Nephilim came in and had sex with. That's one idea that I've heard. So I don't know what to believe. Like, you believe something, like you know it. I don't know too much to get a good idea. But like, this is what I think.
I read Genesis 6:4, and that is the conclusion I come from.
Right.
What the other paragraph I just read from Douglas L. That is the conclusion I get.
And when I read that, I go, "What is?
What is going? Wait a minute.
Talking about?
Sons of God. Wait a minute. What's going on? And see, here's the other thing. People get tripped up on the sons of God in that verse, but you can also go to other scripture mentioned in Job several times. The sons of God went before the throne, and Satan went with them. So it's obviously talking about angels that went before the throne to talk to God about whatever he's going to talk about. So sons of God is no mystery of, is this an angel? Is it not an angel? No, they were angels.
Yeah,
fallen
synonymous
angels.
with angels.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's some old tradition that will try to say those sons of God are like the higher class, the high society people. A lot of different ways they'll try to write that off. And then, Jason, to what you were saying, you'll hear a lot too that it's the line of Seth. Mm-hmm. That's who fell and then mated with the Watchers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another. I was reading in this book that that was a whole theory that is kind of, they want to debunk that because it doesn't kind of line up with the timeline.
I think one of the cool and crazy parts is, and when you read it, is the access they had is because they played within the confines and the rules that God created with, right? They didn't come down and rape the women. They came down and entered into marriage. They entered into a covenant. It was an agreement. The people had to agree to it. They offered them knowledge, war, tools, alchemy, you name it, debauchery, right? Different ways to pleasure yourself.
Yeah, they weren't coming down just raping and pillaging.
No, it was an offer. It was an offer in the same genuine sense on how people got married back in the day. You paid a price for the woman. You offered something for her hand in marriage. Mm-hmm. And then it became a power play. So that's why God couldn't really intervene, because within the constraints and confines of the world he created, they did everything they were supposed to do. And if you read scripture, it goes on to say that God didn't intervene until he heard the cries of men, till he heard the cries of men of his creation saying, God, where are you? At that point, he could come back in.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and this is a good point here. When humans mated with when fallen humans mated with fallen angels, the result was a counterfeit, quote, son of God. That was what they were trying to do. It's a direct difference from what Yeshua did for us. That was the original. That was the Son of God that was supposed to crush the the seed.
But it's because they can't create life because they're not God.
So they wanted to counterfeit it.
They have to.
Hey, let's make our own and destroy. That's why God was so angry.
But if
when the flood happened.
How far in the book of Enoch are you?
Oh, I'm about this far. It's a big book.
No. Well, I mean, so you're probably past the point where like the Watchers see how bad the Nephilim are, like how crazy the world's getting, that it's just basically it's raping and pillaging each other. And the Watchers genuinely didn't want that to happen. They wanted power, but they didn't want to destroy everything. So they go to Enoch and they're like, please go to God and apologize on our behalf. Please, we're sorry.
And the Watchers are
the original
fallen angels.
Fallen.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
They don't know how to create life. They're jacking around with stuff. They don't know what they're doing. So they're creating all kinds of giants.
Weird things.
All kinds of chimeras, all kinds of, minotaurs, you name it.
Yeah.
Stuff they have no business playing with because they're tainting the bloodline. Wow. So they sent Enoch to go talk to God, like, hey, help. We've screwed up.
Minotaurs?
We've gone too far.
Does that say that
Minotaurs, they're mentioned in
are
writings,
they really?
not in the Bible specifically.
But in the book?
In the book of Enoch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are, really?
Well, that's where all this Greek
creations.
mythology comes from. It is from these wild stories that happen.
I was about to say that.
It wasn't just he's made up stuff.
It reminds me of have you guys watched the movie Immortals?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you see like the Greek god battle against what were they called?
The demigods?
No, they're
half.
Yeah, the demigod guys.
They're half human and half
against the
titans.
That fight. That's what I think about, like how that would happen.
And
like,
a lot of times they called the giants titans.
So the titans would be the Watchers.
And
when they're retelling that story, and then the gods of Olympus would be the Nephilim, the men of renown, who overtook the Watchers to become the powerful entity on Earth. And that's what you'll see in every religion's story and how they tell that. That's them beating out their parents, the Watchers. But in reality, the flood, and when they go to Enoch, God comes back and he's like, no, I have to destroy them to protect my creation. Your punishment is that you have to watch it. So he makes the Watchers watch as he destroys all of the giants. He destroys everything, gets them away, and then he locks the Watchers down into the gates of hell.
Right. They're bound.
It's basically the same story.
They're bound.
That's what I'm saying.
Right now.
It fits it's crazy, man. It's crazy. Everyone retells the same story over and over, but it all boils back and comes back to the same thing.
Interesting.
Yeah,
and the only
messing
one that's
up
slightly
creation.
different is typically Christianity's, because we believe in the Messiah. So ours is the alternate route, while theirs is all deifying and personifying.
Yeah, they've got a God for everything.
And power
yeah,
and lust. We're supposed to literally go the opposite way, and that's why you see Christianity as the only alternative religion when it comes to retelling that story of creation and how that power has shifted. It's crazy.
That's amazing. That's amazing you said that, because that mythology, each god they have.
Why are those religions no longer around?
Each god that they have, like for instance, the god of war, they're like, oh, okay, I don't feel so bad. There's a god of war that's okay. I'm supposed to do this. God of whatever, love. Oh, okay. There's a God over this, so it's okay to do this.
That's what makes the Bible so cool, in my opinion, and why I've enjoyed studying this out, because it's made a lot of the other parts of the Bible come alive. Like when Jesus takes Peter and his disciples to Caesarea Philippi, like that's literally back in the day. That's where the cult of Pan operated.
Yeah.
That was called the gates of hell. So he stood in front of the literal gates of hell and proclaimed his church in front of it, basically slapping Pan in the face.
Dude, I was reading up on that a few months ago, and
he does it multiple times.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, and he did that in front of like the Greeks too. So he was telling his followers in so many different ways that I'm going to do this, and also to the Greeks, hey, also I'm overcoming your mythology, right?
Which is awesome, because when you think about it, like when he went down into the gates of hell, he literally like looked them in the face and got a column on it. He was like, hey, in 3 days, like, you guys understand what's about to happen.
Hey,
like,
you remember when y'all were trying to mess that seed thing up?
Right? Like,
yeah.
He gets to just own it.
I'm here.
But it's cool, because even you go into the Old Testament with David, where he talks about pouring your cup to overflowing. You know, there's a lot of people who tie that back into, you go all the way back to ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia. they put food and drinks in there with the dead because that's what they needed to sustain life in the afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if they need men to fill theirs up, but God is filling ours to overflowing, that would reason to me that he's giving us eternal life, whereas they're dependent on something to keep their life active.
Mm-hmm.
So even that goes back to kind of being a slap in the face. And it meant something to people of the time that he would fill their cup to overflowing because it was deeper to them. It meant everlasting life. They saw something beyond just, okay, it's spilling over. You know what I mean?
Right.
Interesting. I have a couple questions as it pertains to the Nephilim. Do they always have red hair?
Wait,
That's what they say. That's what they say.
I've never heard that.
Anyone
What?
that's been found has red hair and 2 rows of teeth. And that's
2 rows of teeth?
and 6 fingers. 12
Yeah.
toes.
That's right. Yeah.
Sounds like my cousin.
Yeah. Are you from Arkansas?
I know, that's
That's truly what they say though. And that's, you know, anyone they've supposedly found or seen has been found the same way. And you go back to, so just to throw more random on it, like Papua New Guinea. There's not white people there, right? That's not the native tribe.
Yeah.
But the cult there worships themselves. They paint themselves white and dye their hair red. And then that's who the god they worship was a white-skinned, red-haired giant. And so if you look at the knots and the way they tie their hair, even in that, they would dye that red too. And if you can see, they still have some of the old statues that haven't completely discolored where the hair is red on it. Those used to be white statues with red hair, just like the Nephilim, just like the giants that we're seeing worldwide.
Wow.
And this would make sense. It makes more sense to me when it pertains to like aliens. Like this is like everything that we see on Earth that has like ancient history, ancient archaeology. We see like, oh, they're aliens or aliens. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe it's this.
Exactly. And there's a whole line of teaching that tells you that the devil is going to utilize the disguise of aliens to introduce his demonic forces and beings onto the earth, and we'll accept it as normal because it's an alien invasion and they haven't killed us yet. We don't realize it's hell on earth, if you will. It's literally a demonic invasion or what have you. But there's a whole line of teaching that within the next few years, if you believe this is the end times or whatever, that towards that time, they're going to introduce us. And they've already started kind of by UFO videos and releasing things and
Operation Bluebeam.
So what would it do to your faith if aliens were real?
That's a question that I ask my wife all the time, and we have that conversation. What would it do? Is your faith that weak that it would it break it and your whole Christian worldview just crumble at that point?
Oh wow, my God's still greater. I mean, we serve Elohim, like the greatest one, like in any retelling of history you see. I mean, to me, it's fascinating. I think it's pretty cool. You know, whether or not they're real or whether or not
it shouldn't break the faith.
It shouldn't. No.
I mean, okay,
because of what you just said.
It's a Hail Mary.
I think the trip up is when things happen like that. If they did, because it's not in the Bible,
right?
People get tripped up.
So when you get those like
an alien, that's not in the Bible. My faith's gone.
Have you read Revelation?
Right.
Anything in Revelation?
Have you seen those beasts?
Perceived as an alien on Earth?
Sure.
Wings with eyes on them. What are you talking about?
But here's the thing: like when you get those the dogmatic Christians, the dogmatic conservative Christian theology, where they're like, if it's not in the Bible from front to back, and it's not interpreted this an American Christian viewpoint perspective, then it's not real. It's not.
If you don't believe in the supernatural, your faith is filled up. I'm not saying you don't believe. I just mean you're not getting the fullness out of what you can get if you do not believe in
Jesus
the supernatural aspect
was
of
the
faith.
best representative of what you just said. Because before he knelt down and spit in the mud and put it on somebody's eyes, that wasn't in the Bible.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that, Mr. Dogmatic?
Right.
No, they called him a heretic.
You know what I'm saying?
A blasphemer.
And that's the thing. Like we're seeing that today, though. We're seeing where we're stuck in between these two positions of where if it's not interpreted this way and it's not an American viewpoint perspective of the Bible, then they're wrong. And it's
the same argument in politics. It's a loose or a strict translation of the Constitution, and then boom, you're one side or the other. It's the Bible's the same way for Christians. You either loose or a strict reading of the Bible, boom, boom, and then it's a schism that the devil just drives.
He loves it.
And that's why that's why Jesus repeatedly. I know we're talking Nephilim, but that's why he repeatedly says to live for peace, be unoffendable. Don't let people get to you. Drive peace, unity. Because the devil always lives in that gap.
Okay.
And as the end times come, that gap is going to get greater because
wider and wider.
The crazier is going to get crazier. I don't know bad English there, but
I'm gonna read this and then I'm gonna ask you a question. But first, I'm gonna say this because this is interesting. Talking about the Watchers that got bound up and they're currently in chains right now, and they're like in a dark place.
welcome to the family.
I believe that spirits, demons, whatever you want to call them, are disembodied Nephilim. Okay, now they saw what happened to the Watchers. How do I know that? Because there was a demon that came up onto Jesus. His name was Legion.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, what the heck are you doing? What is it? Are you here to throw us before the time? They knew there was a place
They were about to
that
go
they
locked
have
up.
seen other people like themselves.
Go to.
Like, oh, wait a minute. Is it time now for that? What the thing that you did to the what? And they freaked out over it. So that was very interesting. And Jesus handled it and said, well, whatever's getting these swine.
Get these pigs
And then, hey, go in the ocean where you belong. I don't know what happened to them, but they're still roaming around.
So
Anyway.
all demons are disembodied?
I think
Nephilim?
so.
That's
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, how else? A lot of people have. I've always been taught that they were the fallen angels, the ones that got kicked out, but that doesn't make sense to me.
It's repeatedly stated that they're locked up.
Yeah, right.
They are
It makes more sense that they came down to do something against God's creation, and then God handled that.
And there's a whole line of teaching, too, that there's a second fall that would lead to a lot of those demons as well,
Yeah.
and that's the Tower of Babel.
Yes.
Because you can read in Scripture where Christ, and this you'll find within every other mythology as well, where it gets to a point where they divide up the nations and divide up the world amongst the rulers, even in Olympia, Mount Olympus of the Greek, or in Rome. That's what they did in the Tower of Babel. Is there was another fall there where God's like, all right, you it's going to be like this. Here's my people. Here's yours. Here's yours. Here's yours. Here's yours. Then he talks again in Psalms about, hey, that decision back there that I made, you guys fumbled that bad. Bad. Like, bad. So I'm going to judge you for it when I come back. And so he puts them on notice, and he lets them know in Psalms, like that decision way back there with the Tower of Babel, when I said you could lead my creation and my people, it was a test. You guys failed miserably. You did the same thing the Watchers did back in the day, so you're going to be judged the same way when I come back. And there's a whole line of teaching that at that second fall, and within that, it created a whole nother a line or a whole nother army of demons, if you will.
All right, I'm gonna read this, and then I'm gonna throw a graphic up on the screen just to give you a timeline. So, according to the first book of Enoch, 200 Watcher-class angels landed on Mount Hermon in the days of Jared.
Time out real quick.
Go.
Thing, just to tie this into your old stuff and make it really weird. UN has a base at the top of Mount Hermon.
The UN?
What?
The UN does. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, wait, I got to let that sink in for a sec.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
I thought you guys would like that.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. The UN has
See,
a base
I know the Nephilim are still around.
at the top of Mount
They're just not
Mount Hermon.
giants.
I
Anyway.
mean, it ties into everything.
I knew you guys would love that.
It
And
does.
that's, dude, look it up on Google Maps. It'll take you
Do
straight
you
to
think
it.
there's some of the giants even still around?
No, there's no giant. I think
that's
there's
the word.
seed.
There are still giants living within Mount Hermon.
yes.
I don't
that's what I've
know
heard.
that because I haven't seen them.
Have you not seen Shaq?
But
He's huge, bro. He's a giant.
Hey, look.
Bro, if giants are bigger than him, I want no part. Like, props, David. Because, dear God.
Okay. In the days of Jared, they mated with women who gave birth to massive offspring known as the Nephilim. Those wicked creatures killed each other off within 500 years. Then their parents, the Watchers, were judged. The question is, did the angels continue to mate with women after that? That's the question. Let me just throw this up. This is kind of a graphic of what a scale, if you will, of what we're dealing with. I mean, people really don't understand.
They think they found Og's bed.
Right.
Y'all know that, right?
So there's Goliath. He was 12 and 18. He was an Og. And there's the regular guy down there, 6-foot guy. But could you imagine going up against something like that? I mean, can you, if these people were walking the earth, you can imagine now how these stories got conflated to what we hear today with
Jack and the Beanstalk.
Yeah, stuff like that. All the mythology that we got from Greece.
I had no idea Just for the visual here for the listeners, it gets up to 36 feet.
Mike's face is like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. So yeah, everything I was reading was like, okay, we found a skeleton that was 10 to 12 feet, something like that.
So they're if you go along that line of thought and belief, they got to that size. Not a lot of people do. Some do. It's just like anything. The longer they did it, it bred out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those genes of gigantism bred out. So they gradually got shorter. Then you get into like the age of the Old Testament. And this is one of my favorite fun facts about it. The whole book of Joshua, like Joshua's terrified.
Yeah.
When he gets the mantle from Moses, he's utterly terrified because he knows what's coming. Like that's when God's like, fear not, for your Lord God goes before you.
Yeah.
Because he's about to lead him. Like it's crazy too if you look at the map. For them to be out there 40 years wondering, like, he took them around and he eliminated every last living piece of Nephilim blood, of giants. Every race. If you go through the book of Joshua, the only ones he said to destroy men, women, and cattle.
That's funny that you brought that up.
Had Nephilimic blood in them, had giants still in their camps. So that's the only reason, because he could have gone straight there and been there in a couple of years. But he specifically took Joshua, and that's why Joshua knew what was coming. He's like, oh, dear God. Fear not. I got this. Just listen to me the whole way.
So you're saying,
trust me.
So you're saying, right? You're saying during the time Joshua was around, Moses was around, the parting of the Red Sea, there were still encampments of these big folks.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, how do you think pyramids
Goliath was there somewhere?
How do you think pyramids?
Yeah,
got?
but
It
like
was after that point.
How do you think pyramids were built?
But I get that, Goliath's one out of
They mentioned
10,000.
3 specifically. Goliath and his brother are both mentioned in the Bible as giants.
Right.
And then there's another one mentioned around that time. Og and Magog were both mentioned as giants. Anything listed as a Rephaim, which translates to giants.
But the question is, I didn't know there's so many of them. Like, so you go to a settlement, down the way, and there's just a village of them. And
I mean, think about it. When Joshua came back,
that,
when he went and looked at the Canaanites, and he came back and said, "We look like grasshoppers, dude."
It's almost primal.
I mean, why would he
in a way.
say that?
There's an alpha pack leader.
Why would he
biggest
say
one,
that?
And then
Okay,
they get shorter out.
and then shorter. Okay.
Yeah. So if you look, like even in the Native American tellings of it,
Sure.
Gosh, I'm trying to remember which one. It's a famous one. Oh shoot! They went to fight one of the chiefs, and the chief was over 9 feet tall. And then his son came out for the battle and was over 11 feet tall. And they were talking about the giants of the plains that they were battling and how much bigger they were. And so the son was going to take over. But I mean, it just, there were multiple heights all through it, but still not up to that 36 feet.
But they were
24 feet. They were much smaller
Right.
than what they were then. Yeah, I can't.
And they were more prevalent.
I mean, yeah, if you're within those ancestral bloodline genes, I mean, you're gonna get the dominant.
I was
gene.
assuming like there was 1 or 2 or 3, and there was like a
like
little,
even the
like a little clan.
Lovelock caves. I mean, there was a ton.
Talk
of them.
about that real quick.
Yeah.
The Lovelock
We're
Cave.
kind of off subject. Yeah, I mean, it's not off subject, but
Yeah, it's still on.
we're rabbit holing.
It's on topic for Nephilim. So basically, the Native Americans in Nevada, where Lovelock Cave is located, they were at war once upon a time with a tribe of Nephilim, basically. And they actually drove all the Nephilim into Lovelock Cave, and then they basically set a huge bonfire at the mouth of the cave and basically killed a whole bunch of them with smoke inhalation. And then the ones that did like run out, they all just, died in a hail of arrows and stuff like that. And then there was an archaeological dig in there where they found, massive sandals and like things that giants would use, basically.
Yes.
Just like giant things.
Right.
And
Big giant spoon.
yeah, and allegedly found some giant skeletons as well, some like mummified gigantic skeletal remains that were like 10 to 12 feet long. So just like huge people.
Yeah. What's amazing is they allowed themselves to get killed, thrown into a cave.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just chilling.
Maybe
That
they
was their
don't.
home.
Maybe they don't want to hurt anybody anymore.
Yeah, maybe
At that time in Nevada, they just want to be chilled. I want to grow my crops. Why are y'all messing my stuff up?
I mean, Scripture says they were there on the days before the flood and after.
Yes.
And if you go back to, I mean, we'll just keep going down the rabbit hole. If you go back to some of your favorite world travelers and historians growing up that we learned about, like Ferdinand Magellan,
Yeah.
Sir Francis Drake, all of those guys, almost every single one of them reported giants on the new lands that they came to. So we're taught all the cool stuff about the lands they found, but they leave out the fact that they found giants there. Magellan, massive. He in Patagonia, he was one of like 4 different
I've heard
people
about
who got there, and they were like, hey, Magellan wasn't lying. There really are giants here. Like that happened all the time. So we're taught history and world conquest, but we're rarely talked about what they found there. And to me, that's always, it strikes me kind of odd. Are we not mature enough? Are we not, what aspect are you trying to keep hidden if we're taught everything but that part? Because forever we're just taught that white people came over here and killed Native Americans, and Native Americans were just peacefully living here amongst themselves until we came over here. Right? Like you don't hear about any of the other battles or conquest or anything going on back in those days.
Yeah. Right.
It's just, the narrative seems very controlled at times, one way or the other, however it's going to go.
Yes.
They don't talk about how Asia Minor and Asia, they traveled down through Alaska territory, Canada territory, and came into North America, and that's kind of how like the Native Americans came to be.
And I mean, think about how every old cave, or not cave, pyramid and stuff has the same design, even though this one's in Mexico, this one's in Cambodia, this one's in Egypt, this one's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, why that shape?
How do they all have that same idea and that same concept and that same technology and building shape?
Yeah, Graham Hancock was talking about that. I watched that show that you recommended.
Man, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yep.
Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix, if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I started it actually.
It's really good.
It's cool.
Sorry, rabbit hole.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think we're good.
I was just throwing up a graphic of kind of the this. I'm reading this book by and I'll put all the show notes in our blog on bottomofthat.com, and you can get all these references, and I'll put these graphs up here too. But this is a book by Rob. Let me get his name here. Rob Sikba, and he's basically showed this graph, and he calls it the Genesis 6 experiment. And a lot of people don't realize how many years go by. When you're reading the Bible, it almost seems like things happen very fast. When you're reading Scripture, you know what I'm talking about. But I'll quickly go over this. If we compare, like if you read, like I'm reading right now, I'm reading Jasher, the book of Jasher, and I'm reading the book of Enoch. And when you synchronize those together and you compare it with Genesis 6, 1 and 2, when it says in those days, it's a reference to the days of Jared. And Jared was Noah's great-great-grandfather.
Pre-Diluvian.
Yep. When the 200 watchers, which is the sons of God, came down mated with daughters, Moses makes the statement that they were also around after that. So when you read after that, you're like, well, what is he talking about? This is where many scholars think he's writing about the days of Noah that preceded the flood, which came after the days of Jared, which is Noah's great-grandfather. The Genesis 6 experiment took roughly 3,550 BC. In Enoch 10:10, it says, the first generation of Nephilim were completely destroyed within 500 years, which brings us roughly to 3050 to around 3000 BC. That is those days which we spoke about in Genesis 6, 1 through 4. So when it says those days, we're talking about that time frame. So a lot of people don't realize that in your mind. That's a lot of time. When it says those days, you just think, oh, I'm just reading that and it says those days. Like
10, 15 years.
Yeah, something like that. You don't think about it. It is a massive amount of time. And the also after that is therefore referring to the time period roughly of 3000 BC to 2350 BC. And it covers a duration roughly 650 to 700 years leading up to the flood, during which there was a return of the Nephilim. So it's not talking about the time period or just before prior to the time Moses and the conquest of Canaan, which was about 1400 years later. So that's why I wanted to show you this graphic here. The Genesis 6 experiment, they were kicking for about 500 years. And then they kind of went away, were destroyed. And then they came up again. And then God said, and then there was Babel, the Tower of Babel. They helped build that. And then God said, dude, this place is out of control. I'm gotta wipe this. Okay, obviously, whatever they're doing, it's having a great impact on my creation, and they're trying to destroy my seed and my creation. And God said, "No, we're gonna wipe this out." So God wipes out the entire planet, and Noah and his family is the only one that survived. So we think.
There's some people who teach potentially one of Noah's children's wives had potentially some Nephilimic blood in there because they know Noah and his family and his kids didn't. Their bloodline was pure.
Right.
So all purely spectacle because no one truly knows. But there's some people who teach and believe potentially that. There's also some who teach and believe that those underground cave systems and some of the stuff that were built
That's what I was
massively
thinking.
were
You could have
created
had oxygen.
and they hid out under there enough to preserve life and get through.
That would make sense.
I was thinking
So
about that
that's
today.
That's two options that you hear that seem somewhat viable as to how someone could
like
survive that
how they
particular-
happen
yeah.
after the flood. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of want to get into like the blood stuff because like when
So important.
Mike and his blood.
Yeah.
when we were
The adrenochrome.
when I was doing some research into this, like some people were making videos and they were talking about, like B positive, B negative, like that type of blood.
Sure.
How there's like big differences between the two. Like for example, if you have a woman who is Rh negative and a man who's Rh positive gets her pregnant, her body will actually like fight the baby basically.
Yeah, I've heard
because
that.
have you heard of that?
What? No.
Yeah. And they were talking about like how all these world leaders are basically like Rh negative because basically that's a big indicator that like the Rh positive and Rh negative are not compatible and came from vastly different sources. And people
Wow.
were trying to tie that into the Nephilim. I was wondering if you had heard of that at all, or
Not to that extent. There's a lot of other blood type stuff that I've read about and learned about a lot of with kind of the ritualistic sacrifices and the need and the function and the purpose of blood within those, because it kind of goes back to the beginning where even to this day they can't create life. All they can do is attempt to taint and counterfeit within the rules and tools that God has provided for them. So, I mean, if you look at the number one killer in the world right now, what you look at Baal, Moloch, whatever that supreme big Jupiter would end up being, Zeus.
Abortion.
Anytime they sacrificed to him, it was living children. So what is the number one sacrifice today? What's the number one cause of murder in the world today?
abortion.
Yeah. And they've been, every culture has had some kind of children sacrifice ritual that they've done. The Mayans, the Aztecs.
Yep. And it's always to feed one of their gods because they need that blood, because they think that blood preserves and gives them life in the afterlife and maintains their power within it. And then they do some of the ritualistic trances and prayers and stuff with blood to draw them out of the pits of hell, their spirits, to communicate with them, give them direction, give them whatever they need for the
disembodiment.
next steps. Exactly.
Yeah.
They have to have an avatar.
That Jesus met.
They have to have an avatar to talk and work and play and pull through.
Avatar.
So think about it this way. Like one way to look at it is just view it like a mafia. Like everyone nowadays is like, the mafia is not active. Say, no, it 100% is still active.
Oh, heck
making
yeah.
money. It just looks different because it would get caught if it did it the same way it used to.
Yeah.
So this operates the same way. Yes, the shot callers may be in prison, but they still have a phone line to their people. They're still calling the shots. They still know what's going on.
Yeah.
They're still very aware.
Absolutely.
And they're still working on their people, trying to figure out a way to bust them out ahead of them being locked in permanently.
That's a good illustration.
So that's that's why when you said that earlier, I was like, welcome to the family. It's an easy way.
Yeah.
For me, it was an easy way to think about it and to view it as it's run just like a mafia family.
Okay.
They're-
Next question is this, and this is for everybody. We've done a Secret Society
y'all crushed
series.
that, by the way. Yeah, those
Now,
were so good.
we went through some
Thank you.
dark stuff, and we know that these people are in power, these elite people. Is it possible? And that most everything we talked about is anti-God, is anti, and then Luciferian. Is it possible that they're not giants, but they are Nephilim seed, Nephilim genes?
You want? Yes.
Hello?
Yeah.
There's
Is that possible that's
Dr.
what's happening?
Dr. Laura Sanger, that's exactly what she's researched and taught. And I mean, it's kind of what I lean towards believing, especially if you kind of read her books and go back towards history and the way she's able to point it out and lay out the facts. It tends to make sense, right? But she says there's Nephilimic traits to be able to tell who may be hosting or pushing that Nephilimic agenda, who back in the day would probably have been a giant because they would be ruling on Earth and taking over what they need to be. Think of like a Hitler, a Mussolini, a Stalin. You could go back in American history
Karl
and
Marx.
pick them. Yeah, I mean, you could go all the
Mao.
way through and see that. But she listed out, I think it was like 10 or 12 just specific traits that you could go and apply to these different people and leaders throughout. And it was a really cool filter frame to put over history to see that. And it made it, like I said, there's a lot of things taught, but that's kind of where I lean, is the fact that, again, to go back to the mafia thing, they still know what they're doing. They're still active. It has to look different, because if it's as obvious as it used to be. Now, all the way back to if they announce aliens are real and then they can do it the way they used to do it, I think that's when it hits the fan. Like, you know what I mean?
You're
Like,
going to run into the hills, yeah.
Oh, you're going to see stuff. People laughing, playing with spirits are going to see things they never thought they'd do it. I think you, Mike, my family, my dad has told me stories of his great-great-grandpa who used to practice white magic. Not black, it was white. They swore it was good. But he remembers him casting spells, standing there and watching the axe chop the wood stack itself, like dancing, almost like literally just like Mickey Mouse and Fantasia.
Yeah, Harry Potter stuff.
Yeah, and I was not allowed to watch what's it called? Smurfs growing up.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard so many
Blue
Christians
Devil.
say that.
My dad recognized the spells from Gargamel. The spells
That
that
were legit.
Gargamel was saying on TV and having the kids say and stuff were real spells.
They
And
do
my
real
dad-
spells in the show.
They were real spells.
I heard
And my
a lot
dad,
of Christians
my
say
dad
that.
recognized them and freaked out, turned it off, and
Yeah.
we were not allowed to watch Smurfs.
My father-in-law was that way.
And
With,
I mean, so I've had like
his
weird
kids.
stories.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Dude, people who have been around it, like my dad was utterly spooked by it.
Yeah.
And I've had just weird interactions and stuff like that where, and my past with drugs, I've, you've seen things you can't unsee. And there's a reason that people since the beginning of time have utilized drugs to try to enter into their God's presence, because there's no guilt, there's no shame. You can be yourself. You feel clean if in that moment. But it's all counterfeit, because I mean, if you get in God's presence, it's the same feeling with no shame at the end of it.
What you said with drugs?
Yeah.
Like an hallucinogen or
Getting that euphoric state.
They found cannabis and like psychedelics and stuff on the altars of Baal and all these gods, Canaanite gods, Roman, Greek, all the way back to the beginning of time. They found different hallucinogens and mind-altering substances on the altars.
Yeah. Well, I've also heard that they found a lot of DMT in like where the burning bush was.
Really?
What's DMT?
Dimethyltryptamine.
Yeah.
There we go.
Wow.
You get it. You lick frogs. You ever
It's
heard
science!
people licking frogs? No, it occurs naturally in nature. You can make it synthetically, but there are a lot of places
Plants.
it grows.
No, what's the why that? Why
It's
is
a
that?
psychedelic.
So, or what are you saying? Why is that around the bush, the burning bush? He didn't really see that? What's going on?
That's what
people are saying. Yeah.
Oh,
He
okay.
got a contact high or a high somehow. Like
How would they
touched it.
know that now?
Because they said they can find it now.
the plants now in that area.
Oh, in that area. Oh.
So that's the idea. The theory.
Anything
So
to
that
discredit.
those plants were there 5,000,
I don't-
6,000
I
years.
I have no idea.
Maybe the toads were around.
That's a little stretch right there.
I don't know.
They did regrow one of the olive trees from Jesus' time not too long ago in Jerusalem, which was pretty cool.
Are you serious? I
Yeah.
I never knew they were.
They preserved some of the
I didn't know
seeds
they were
had 'em.
gone.
A lot of the trees from when Jesus walked in Jerusalem are gone. They're not the native trees anymore. It's new ones that have grown in. So they were able to grow from preserved seeds. One of the old olive trees was the same style, the same family that
Wow.
when Jesus walked.
Okay, here's what's cool here. Now, I'm listening to everything. I'm taking this in, processing. It makes sense to me now that because the end game is the same. Destroy the seed, mess up the creation. The end game is the same, and you can see that on the stage now. The difference is they got destroyed before. However they were doing it when they were giants, it didn't work. It didn't work out for them. So they had to come up with a new plan. Now they can infiltrate. They're like, let's not be different from the regular people. Let's get in there and infiltrate and do what we need to do, and they won't fight us. They won't fight it. They won't get us.
Yeah, we're desensitized to it.
Right.
We're so desensitized.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
So
I'm
I mean,
not
like,
entirely sure what you said.
I'm in my mind, I'm thinking that Nephilim traits, Nephilim gene has not somebody that's possessed by a disembodied Nephilim.
Okay.
Somebody that was born that has that Nephilim seed, Nephilim gene currently today.
Like that bloodline.
Yes.
Okay.
And they grow up and they become a Joe Biden,
Okay.
a Kamala Harris, a Nancy Pelosi,
A David
a Bill
Rockefeller.
David Rockefeller.
So those
All liberals.
I'm just saying
the
they're
families
all
and-
anti-God and they want to destroy everything to do with Christianity. It just makes sense to me. And then on the flip side, we're supposed to, you need to love and pray for these people. Can they be saved?
I mean,
If they're
anytime you see a Nephilim in the Bible, they're told to be destroyed.
That's what I'm saying. It's a conflict inside me.
But it truly is a battle of good.
Do you know what I'm
versus
saying,
evil.
Mike?
Like,
Or
yes.
did I? Okay.
I get it. Yes.
To this day, people call God, the God of Christianity, every bit as evil as the God of Islam. Just read the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you're just reading it like that, like just some fantasy novel, then yeah, cool, it's pretty bloody. But if you go in and study it, every single thing God does is intentional, all the way through the Bible.
Absolutely.
From having him destroy those bloodlines, all the way through going all the way to Pan's Labyrinth, going to the gates of hell to do that. Like everything he does was drawing and painting a picture for us today. Like it's I don't know. It's fascinating to me with that.
So we talked about the Illuminati as part of our series, all those different bloodlines, and they embody these Nephilimic traits that you mentioned earlier. Are those bloodlines direct descendants of the Nephilim themselves?
So that's what they say. That's the only one who are allowed to be that top level of Illuminati at that top tier class has to be able to trace their bloodlines all the way back to the fall. And supposedly those families who have it can and have proof and are able to do so.
Are you talking about the Rockefeller?
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, and like the Rothschilds.
I mean, like,
Rothschilds?
just like you
Can
said,
you-
The
so you-
Russells.
Yep.
Huh?
Yeah. They're one of them.
What?
just like you said earlier,
Jacob
It
Russell?
literally means red, right? When you know that the Nephilim have red hair.
let's destroy him.
I didn't know Russell meant red, but
It does, yeah.
I knew that was one of the lines.
Rust red.
Are you part of that line, or is it?
Yeah, I'm trying to blow it. I'm a whistleblower.
Edward Snowden
We
over
just
here.
did
We have
Edward
an
Snowden.
My
Edward
family's
Snowden.
after me. God, hey, my grandpa was a Mason though.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
And my grandpa on both sides of the family, my mom and my dad's side were both Masons.
Did
And
he
led
convert
the Masonic
after?
Lodge?
How did he end up?
I have no idea. I'm dead.
Well, I mean, was there a conversion, or did he go?
Oh.
Did he go to the grave with a white apron? Because that's a no.
No. No, my Pepa was saved.
Oh, okay,
my
okay,
grandpa,
so he
no,
got out.
God only
Okay.
knows. God only
Thank
knows
God.
about my Pepa.
What? Who was the one who did the white magic? Was
That was my dad's side, not my grandpa, but the next one up. Great.
great. Okay.
Mm.
Do you know how he got into that?
I have no idea.
Interesting.
My dad's the one who told me, and I wish I could ask him more about that, but he's not.
Going back on the bloodline,
Yeah.
like you said earlier, whatever they do is a cheap imitation of what God does. And as we know in the Bible, and for the Hebrews, genealogy was a big deal.
Yes.
And I mean, it would make sense for them to be like in the Illuminati, hey, can you trace your bloodline back? Because we know that's a big deal because
Right.
it's done in
You're right.
yeah.
You're right. What if there's a book somewhere and they have to follow this book back and go, oh wait, my great grandfather was here, and they have to trace it back and they have to make sure it's pure.
Just like the way they did with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
They had to make
Yeah,
sure.
Jesus was legitimized by having
By
the family
genealogy.
tree in the Bible,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that it was as pure as he claimed it to be.
Yeah.
This would
that would
also
make sense.
explain why
No, that's
there's
really good. That's
so much inbreeding in a lot of these Illuminati bloodlines. Because we came across that in our research. There's
Sure
just like
did, yeah.
so much inbreeding. It's
because to them they don't see it as incestual and bad. It's promoting the point of diluting the DNA. and
Right. They're trying to keep it as pure as they can.
exactly their type of purity.
Right.
But they don't control and can't create life like God. Dude, they're dumb, right? Like God's obviously nothing happens on this earth and in this world unless God allows it to happen. So like even if they think like, yes, our plan worked, we break them, like it's going to roll right into Revelations and then we know. You know what I mean? Like so.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We know how this
Hitler.
ends, but
Hitler wanted to keep the pure race.
He did.
Yeah. Wow.
The Aryan race. Did I say that right?
Aryan.
Aryan.
Wow.
Is that just white boy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Pretty much.
I think there's
Bunch of
specific,
crackers.
Blonde
specific,
hair.
blonde hair, blue eyes.
Oh yeah, the blonde. Okay, I missed it.
Yeah. Never mind that
No.
Hitler had black.
Yeah, never mind that. Nothing to see here, folks.
Everyone but me.
Keep
Everyone
burning the
but me.
books.
But I mean, speaking specifically of the Nazis, that's why they were huge Satanists and occult.
Oh my
occultists.
God.
Like you can read about the science experiments that Joseph Mendel did on specifically Jewish kids on purpose. Again, let's go back to the bloodline here.
Yeah.
Like he was attacking
The bloodline.
the bloodline of Jesus. He went straight for the Jews and he rounded them up in concentration camps, and then he studied them, tormented them, experimented on them for 5 years. I mean, it's not that it could be any more perverted or gross, but like to even look at it like that, like because we know he was experimenting, but to what end? Well, now you kind of know.
Yeah.
With this, it was all towards the occultist, Satan, like nefarious. Nothing good could come from it on these poor little, you know what I mean? Like it's just,
Yeah.
it's insane. But the way the devil works, he had a fresh cache of experiments, like just for 5 years. All right, you got 5 years to do this. See what you can find out.
Yeah. And it's interesting that.
And then we brought him over here.
It's interesting. Satan.
Yeah.
That's his
We
plan.
brought several. What was that other guy we brought over? Von Braun?
Yeah.
The one who made the atomic
Yeah.
bomb.
Yeah.
Did you know that Nagasaki was on the 33rd parallel? You guys know the thing with the 33rd parallel?
No.
Studied all
Do
that.
tell.
It's
This show is all about that.
It's with the occultist, with everything, with the
33rd
the
parallel.
33rd degree Mason is the highest level.
Yeah.
So everything they do is on the. Kennedy was killed on the 33rd parallel, where
What
he
does
was
that
actually
mean?
shot. It's a point of power and completion within the Masonic Lodge. So it's
What do you mean he was killed on it?
on the 33rd parallel plane, longitude, latitude, on the 33rd parallel.
Gotcha.
Like if you
Okay,
launch it,
gotcha.
line
Thank
up,
you.
You can go through our history, and if you Googled
I did not know
historical
that.
events that
That
happen
is
close
wild.
to the 33rd parallel, it'll blow your mind because it's a point of
Wow.
power and completion.
So what about?
Another
So what were
cheap,
you? So
another
what?
cheap imitation.
Yep.
So what were you saying about the other 33rd?
Yeah.
I forgot what'd I say?
Wait, what was that?
Well, he started talking about something was on the 33rd, just like JFK.
Before that.
Yeah.
Nagasaki.
Hiroshima,
Oh, yeah.
Nagasaki, yeah.
Nagasaki, was on the 33rd parallel, and I'm trying to remember.
Oh,
Was it
wow.
our 33rd
Here comes the
president.
sun.
I think it was our 33rd president who during World War II who fired it.
Oh,
remember.
okay. Interesting.
Look it up. I think it is
Oh,
33rd
wow.
president, and it was on the 33rd parallel.
Yeah, 33.
Yeah.
It's a
So
big
look it up.
number
It's
for them.
insane. It's insane. You'll see all kinds of. Which David's was 444 was the number of harmony, and supposedly the frequency he played at to loosen the tormenting
On
spirits.
Saul.
on Saul
Yeah.
was the frequency 444. So like you can find that healing frequency, like you can YouTube and listen to it. Some people listen to it just to sleep. Frequency 444, but that's supposedly David's frequency, dude. If you get into sounds and frequencies, Jason,
Oh, definitely.
bro, it is.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's all about the vibration.
It's crazy.
Those good vibrations.
But
Yes.
well, that goes all the way back to the building of the pyramids and everything. They think they built through magnetism and vibrations. They were able to balance the polarity and utilize vibrations to help these blocks move themselves. That's the.
I never heard that.
They
Have
talk
you heard
about
that,
when
Mike?
tech,
I have heard
I have
when
heard that.
civilization crashed, it was rebuilt, and we went the way of combustion versus the way of
Yeah, they were
alchemy
way
and
more
science.
advanced than we are right now.
Oh, 100%. And that's why
100%.
it looked different, and that's why we think that we were smarter than them and they're dumb. No,
Yeah,
we
right.
Just,
No,
we
no,
just
no.
went the way of combustion. We didn't have the help per se of living.
That is a great
fallen angels
analogy.
to do it.
What you just said, the combustion.
Yeah, that's the difference in our technology. At
Yeah.
that point's where the revolution changed for this civilization. If you
And
will.
I think if you think about it, Noah was what? A farmer?
Hmm?
I mean, what did he do? Nothing. He didn't do any of that stuff. He didn't know how to build a computer. You know what I'm saying? He built a
Yeah.
boat,
the frequency stuff is
and he had a
crazy.
bunch of animals. So when he got off, what do you think the world's going to do? I mean, think about it. If the world was flooded right now and I was the only one around, we're done.
But again,
We're not making pyramids again.
like there's a
We're
reason
not-
for it because
we're making huts, and
we're
I'm
not
getting
involved
drunk at a
with-
vineyard.
We're not involved with fallen angels like they were. Like you know
That's
what I mean?
true.
Like everything that they were doing, all those alchemy and the sciences and the magic were all tied into spiritual worship outside of our Creator. It
Yeah.
was all revolving around a power source of a fallen Earth, right? It was bending the fallen earth to your will. It was not so much men discovering. And I think it's the book of Enoch where it even says God's mad that men didn't get to discover technology on their own, to create it and develop it on their own. Like, he meant that to be a blessing for
to
mankind,
them to discover,
not for angels to be like, this is how you do it.
Hey, look,
now
yeah.
use it to serve me, because that's what happened. Like, anyone who thinks
Exactly.
doing a good thing for you usually has something self-serving behind it, and that's basically what they did. They gave him a gift to use it to serve themselves, and God got mad at it.
And think about,
Interesting.
and if you think about it, before the flood, there was a canopy around the earth. There was a canopy that helped them. They were just
Theoretically.
different. No, because in the Bible it says
Bible says it.
when
I know, but
when the water
there's
of the
different
deep
interpretations of
when the water of the deep came up, it burst through the firmament and broke
Right.
it.
Do you think that's when Pangea happened?
Yeah.
Is that what you guys think?
That's what I think.
I told the guys a couple weeks ago.
I think
I'm in this point where I'm rethinking the. I'm rethinking
You're
my.
repositioning the continents as you
No, I'm
No,
rethinking
he's-
my ideas of Genesis.
Okay, that's
Of
what's
what
up.
Yeah,
he's-
so
yeah.
so I'm trying. I don't have a concrete
Yeah.
idea right now, but
Whether you're a creationist or
right.
naturalist or
right, or like the time frame.
strict worldview, yeah.
Like I don't the time frame.
Yeah.
Like I don't.
Yeah.
I
Man, my pastor,
You're trying to figure it
my
out.
pastor back
Yeah.
home thought people existed prior to, and Adam and Eve were
Yeah.
a brand new creation unto the earth.
right.
In
I've heard
addition
that
to
too.
Neanderthal and everyone who was
Yeah.
broken already
Yeah.
there, which would be separate from Neanderthal and all those people came from the fallen Nephilim and
Yeah.
them experimenting with people
Right.
creating this
Yeah.
alternative. 'Cause
Yeah.
There's every bit as many stories about pygmies as there are giants.
Yeah, and I
walking
don't.
the
I
earth.
don't
Oh, absolutely.
And I don't
Yeah,
subscribe
right.
to the timeline. Like like people say that the Earth is 7,500 years
Yeah.
old, around that.
Yeah.
I don't subscribe to that. I don't know, but I don't think it's. I mean, we know enough with science today to date things. We know enough by looking outside of our universe to date the universe. I mean, though, I want to live in a Christianity that we don't separate our Christian views with science, and I want them to be married rather than not. You know what I mean?
I think
They can
traditionally we're
coexist.
getting to a point where science supports Christianity,
Right.
where it used to be used to oppose it.
Right.
Well, let me prove
Right.
that's false with science.
Right.
We've gotten to a point where I think science is starting to prove it. And again, but as a Christian, you have to have an open mind, right? Like,
Yeah.
And again, to go back to the first thing, it's such a peripheral belief. Like, I really hope as Christians, we're not out here bashing each other about like how long the Earth's been around. Like, we
Right.
got more important stuff to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If
Like,
it's flat
just
or
throw it,
globe.
just throwing that minor.
Well,
little
I was
note
going
out
to
there
say
with
this.
that. because I
This-
love that. Always have an open mind and try to learn, right?
Absolutely.
Like,
I think what it boils down to is as long as you've been presented with the gospel and you know where your eternal life
yeah,
is heading, all this other stuff,
Yeah, secondary.
The prereqs are low.
Right.
I mean, the gate is
as,
narrow.
as long
but
as long as you know there's an afterlife
Yeah.
and where you're going and you've put your trust in Jesus, all this other stuff. I mean,
agree.
it shouldn't shake that. Is what I'm saying.
But I like
you know
what
what I'm
he said-
saying.
I like what Jacob said earlier when he said that knowing all this information, knowing these different ideas,
Yeah.
it benefits and makes it your faith
It really
more
does.
fulfilling.
it's so much deeper.
Yeah, so much deeper.
Yeah. And
Because you can see how big your God really
you
is.
feel more
Right,
connected
right,
to
yeah.
it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think it's easy to look at, it's hard sometimes to put ourselves in the position of the disciples because we're like, oh my God, they're in the Bible. They're a finished product. Look how Peter's the rock of
Yeah.
the church. Da, da, da.
I'm reading it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like if we only had the opportunity to see our end story and how it looked when we were done, I feel like we would be every bit as satisfied and happy with ourselves as we are with the disciples. And that's not to say in an effort to not try as hard. We need to strive to be better every single day. But I think people read the Bible and get so hard on themselves. But I think if they understood the context of the scripture and what was really going on, it would alleviate some of that pressure and that burden of just, well, let me place myself into this scripture. Well, you don't really belong there all the time. Just there's some you don't just place yourself into. You pull from context
Yeah.
and you learn and you educate yourself. So I think it helps with a better understanding of the Bible. But I think with clarity with reading the Bible, it's been extremely beneficial as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Let me ask you this.
And then I check everything with Pastor Troy. If I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that, I'm going to call Pastor Troy.
Yeah.
So we brushed a moment ago on like science and, supporting Christianity. Do you think that there's still a big element of science that has an adversarial view towards Christianity? Like we spoke before we started recording about the Smithsonian and, a bunch of people having testimony of reporting giant skeletons to them They come and collect the giant skeleton, and then basically they bury it. They don't tell anyone about it. It's not on display anywhere. Do you think that they're doing that to basically do what they can to,
discredit Christianity?
Yes. Yeah. Like if they let that be known, would that reinforce Christianity? And are they not comfortable with doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I truly do think it's all controlled narrative. I don't remember the exact date, but I think it's something like 1936 or 1926. If you look at the newspaper before that point, which is when the Smithsonian got involved, they report giant bone findings all the time. Like I said, you can go to your favorite explorers in history. They wrote about all the giants they saw at these places. Like it was a known thing, and we've been so washed from it. Why? Unless you're preparing something involving it. You know what I mean? Like I may not know the end game, but I feel like it's very intentional that it's not allowed to be talked about, or if you do bring it up or talk about it, you're labeled as crazy or conspiracy theorist or like that's the part I just don't understand. If it's real enough that, I don't know, in the day and age of the internet, you can only keep a lie locked so long. And I feel like they've lost the lie and they've lost their grip on it. I'm not saying there are 40-foot, 50-foot people walking around, but I do believe there were races of people 10, 15 foot tall walking around that you'll find bones for, and it shouldn't blow your mind if you do, because they've been noted over and over in history.
Yep.
Like you can't pick and choose what parts of history you like because it makes sense in your little mind.
That is a good point.
You have to take it for what it is, because you're going to relive it otherwise. Like if a giant showed up right now, I don't think any four of us would freak out. We'd be like, hey, I've read about you. There'd be a lot of people.
I'd freak out if I saw it. I'll be quite honest.
But you wouldn't think like, oh my God, alien invasion. I don't know.
You wouldn't think
you have a better understanding.
I think you'd freak out because you're actually physically seeing it.
Yeah,
but
and I'd say
you wouldn't freak out and be like, oh, where'd you come from?
And we have to destroy it. Go
on.
grab some guns.
I kind of want to get it
Who's
to
got
be
the
his
sling
friend.
and stone? No.
I'd want to befriend him.
Harry and the Hendersons.
Yes.
So doesn't he have the
Listen, guys, I know you've been treated bad. Come on in the house.
But there are explorers. There are some of the explorers who talk about the Americas before it was colonized, that there were good and bad giants. There were some races of giants that took them in, that helped them camp, that took care of them, that they said they felt secured inside their fortress walls because they were bigger than everyone else's. They would trade with them. So, I mean, that kind of threw me for a loop, because I always assumed like primal beast, mental capacity. Because you'll like Magellan, the one I keep bringing him up because that's the one I was reading about recently. They saw a giant standing on a beach throwing dirt on itself, spinning around, pointing at the sun.
No, he was on shrooms.
I don't think you're all there when I read that, but Magellan in his story, they tried to kidnap two. They did kidnap two, got him on the ship, and they didn't survive the trip. Yeah, I'm serious. This is all in the same book that we take all the other facts from Magellan. It's all his writings. But they actually kidnapped two of the giants from Patagonia.
Right. Alive? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So they didn't know anything about handcuffs or what they were. So they tricked them into putting on a pair of handcuffs. And then as soon as they figured out, they tried to pull or move. It said that freaked them out and they started screaming. And then all the other giants attacked. So they somehow incapacitated them. I don't remember exactly. And then drugged the other ones. Like all the men drugged the two giants, got them aboard the ship. And then they died along the way, so they couldn't even get them there alive.
Wow.
So they started rotting, and so they ended up dumping the bodies on the way back.
Wild.
So there's no proof. They dumped them in the middle of the ocean. But Magellan wrote about it.
Yep.
Like it was all captured in there.
Hey, you know what? Here's what's funny where you're talking about the bones and the narrative. Okay, we've got the Smithsonian and all these museums of bones that we found. We made these dinosaurs. How come we hadn't made giant men in these... Right? Why the dinosaur?
It doesn't fit the narrative.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like if you found, like you said, they turned it in and then they came back and said, what are you talking about?
Right.
We didn't have any big bones. Like they destroyed it or something. Why didn't they put that up in a museum?
I mean, look at this. Like even the skull wrapping and elonging and stuff. Where would they get the idea to do that if they hadn't seen it from somebody else who looked different or was misshapen or was probably not 100% human, may have been a Nephilim, may have been part of an old race. But that's literally a sign of royalty in multiple generations, in multiple civilizations throughout history. It is a sign of royalty to have a cone-shaped, elongated, alien-shaped head. Don't think they just made that up.
Yeah.
They learned that from somewhere. There's a reason that every emperor, that every pharaoh, that everyone claimed to be offspring of a king, and that's what made them the rightful heir to power, to go back to the heritage. You know what I mean? Like, that it made you a ruler if you had that right bloodline. The right bloodline was shown by the characteristics,
Yeah.
what you look like, the features, how you ruled.
You see that a lot when you see pictures of Jacob Rothschild, because a lot of people are like, notice the elongated
But the
head.
way you said that and looked at
His
me
fingers, his hands are friggin'
with
massive.
such conviction.
Yes.
Dude, no, his fingers are probably like, they look like double the length of mine, I swear. His hands are scary
Going back to
long.
that physical trait, the elongated head, cone head, that makes me think of just aliens.
Hmm?
The whole mythology behind aliens. What do they look like?
Elongated heads.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. The table is set. There you go.
it's interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite historical figures was Attila the Hun, and they were a nomadic
Yeah, I know.
horse riding people. They conquered Rome, which was insane at the time, but it was because they introduced a new style of warfare. But their people were known for skull wrapping, and because it made them look scary and intimidating on the battlefield because they looked different. And that was so many years after all this. Like Rome's already, towards the end. But even they knew about it at the time. You know what I mean? To make yourself look like a fearsome, scary, and powerful being.
Put fear in their
being.
hearts.
Yeah. To me, it looks crazy. I don't know. I would call someone Beavis and Butthead if I saw him today. Like, it's not scary at all. So we obviously know nothing about the culture behind that.
Yeah.
But I have to assume they weren't stupid. There's a reason for it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not naive enough to think that one day they just wrapped their head and said, look at me. I am decapitated now. Just because they had like a long head.
Here's something to think about. So, we've talked about the Nephilim are the offspring of the Watchers. when they were born, did they have to be raised and taught to be who they were, or is it just instinctively? I know I come from this. You think they were just different, like, or did they have to be raised to like, hey, we need to destroy this creation of our enemy. Your father was an angel. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I think
or was it just
they were still directly involved at that time? So I think there was everything's legacy.
So did they have to be taught, or was it just instinctively? I'm a Nephilim. I need to be evil.
Programmed to kill.
Yeah, you think?
I don't know.
That's weird to think about, right?
I would think anything fallen is prone to hate and selfishness. I mean,
that's good. That's a good point.
I'm a parent. I don't mean that to be rude towards anyone else if you think your kid's an angel, but you'll find out at a point every human being is born selfish and self-centered
because of the fall,
and me focused. So I'd have to assume, I mean, them no different, probably way more evil, because that does pass through genetics and bloodlines. You'd have to think. I don't know. That's crazy.
That's a good point, though, right?
I'm curious to get your thoughts about like the whole giant of Kandahar story. We mentioned that before we got on air, which was basically in Afghanistan. I think it was Navy SEALs, right?
And when was it? When did it take
let's talk
place?
about that.
It was Rangers. I think it was Rangers.
Rangers. When did it take place?
It was when we first went out to Iraq for the weapons of mass destruction.
Oh, so
the mid '90s,
Mid-90s.
like '95.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Wait,
wasn't it?
no. Weapons of mass destruction.
was that after 9/11?
Yeah, it was after.
Was
Oh
after
wait,
9/11,
that was
yeah.
before Desert Storm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Oh,
Desert
wow.
Storm was after Saddam Hussein. We went after the WMDs after 9/11.
Yeah, remember?
Oh, I always get it messed
Remember
up
they-
because
remember we made up that big old lie.
Yeah.
They had
Well,
weapons of mass
it's not really a lie if you think about it like this. There's a number of people who think that WMDs were code name for giants.
Well,
And because
I guess if you look at it that way,
and
yeah.
because the giant of Kandahar was one. Supposedly they found Gilgamesh's tomb around that time. And then we confiscated Gilgamesh's body, the U.S. government. I mean, by we, supposedly. So, there's a lot
really, where's that at?
well, Smithsonian has
It's on a
somewhere,
black site?
somewhere. But again, that's if you go down that line, they want his body to utilize his DNA to rebuild and regrowth and reborn Nephilim giants. Like that's their whole goal. So some secret society, I'm sure Rothschild has him somewhere. But
Super soldiers.
But yeah, but that's what there's a whole lot of people who think that's what we went over there for because of all the rumors, the warnings, the sayings, the tales of all the giants and everyone out there that are our specific purpose. And supposedly they found it. Where was it? Somewhere they were going to take it to like their museum of antiquities and stuff like that and started moving stuff there. And if you go look at the war, like we basically took over their museum for like 4 or 5 months or whatever. Basically gutted it, took what we wanted out of it, and then gave it back over to them and never told anyone why we were setting up posts at their museum
Wow.
antiquities.
So just confiscating their antiquities.
Just taking anything we felt was giant related or anything like that. That's what they think.
Kind of sounds like what the Nazis did with the.
So is that where they found the giant of Kandahar? Was that museum they set the post
so the
up?
giant of Kandahar was an actual fight that took place while they were out there. They were in guard in a village, and the village told the rangers they were looking for somebody, one of the people on their list, and they were looking up north, and the people told them, look out for the giant out there. He's not nice. He's mean. And they were like, whatever, da-da-da. So they kept going on their patrol, and they got up to the cave, and the giant came out of the cave. They saw him, apparently stabbed one with the spear, like just picked him up with it and the spear, and then they unloaded a clip at him, and I don't remember what the call sign is to literally use every last bullet you have on you, but that's the call sign they were given. Mm-hmm. So everyone just unloaded on him, just blasted him to smithereens. Then Black Hawk helicopter came out. Or not Black Hawk, a big helicopter came out, took the body, boop, got away like nothing ever happened again. And then none of the people were allowed to talk about it, supposed to talk about it. But when you're out there on post, I mean, a lot of rumors and stuff started spreading and people telling the story of what was really going on. And, there's a lot of people who have said it's the real deal. It's the real, and there's pictures supposedly floating around of what that giant looked like. And for Gilgamesh, there's an actual drawing supposedly. They wouldn't let any pictures get out, but somebody made a drawing of what he looked like loaded up right before he went on the helicopter. I'll have to see if I can find that. If I can, I'll send it to you guys.
Wow.
There was a giant spotting made it out recently. There was a giant spotting recently in like Wyoming.
Oh, are you talking about on the mountain?
Yeah, that mountain.
Yeah, I figured that was a hoax.
Was it a hoax?
Yeah.
Dude, was that guy that went missing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I started researching it and
I for one, I still 100% believe there are giants who are still living and walking the earth. I don't believe per se they are like active Nephilim who are out to destroy Christians and Christianity. I think by this point some of them are just like outcasts and on the outskirts of society and not
living in caves.
Yeah, they have no choice because it's how they were raised and they were told to be afraid and stay away from people or they'll kill you. You know what I mean?
Would you consider Andre the Giant?
Since his name's Giant.
The dude was
a giant.
7'4".
He has gigantism.
520 pounds.
Yeah, he could drink like 70 beers.
And not get drunk.
To see him hold a beer
his
can was
hand.
insane. Yeah, it looks like me holding one of Sailor's juice boxes.
Yeah.
It's just...
And he's on the shorter end of the giants too.
Because who's the tallest recorded human in recent history? Was he like 8, 11 or something like that? He looks goofy.
Sounds
a great
right.
question.
Yeah,
Something like that. But I mean, the gigantism is still, it's a real thing. It's a disorder, but it's crazy to me. And you'll hear people try to label the giants of the Bible as normal humans with gigantism.
Yeah, 8'11".
Oh, nice. Oh, spot on. Robert Wadlow.
Yep.
But like, if you look at him, if you see him, he looks like elongated and different. Looks like he can barely move.
Right. Yeah.
And so you'll hear a lot of people
like clearly a disability.
Yeah. Like nowadays they'll be like, well, look at how they mentioned that Goliath was slow and da-da-da. And I'm like, plotting doesn't mean mentally disabled. So they've tried to attach like this modern gigantism genetic disorder onto what is a genetic giant. Not a disorder, but bred with their DNA to be a giant, which would be a killing machine. And and that's why.
And maybe it's just tainted and it turned into this, which is not like it used to be.
And if you think about it, that's why with old wars and stuff, like remember Troy, the movie, but the battle obviously.
Yeah.
The way they fought was David and Goliath. You picked your best versus our best and saved the slaughtering of everything else. Because if you had a giant, nobody was going to go out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so that's why they offered before, hey, we've got a giant, if you guys want to just give up or put one of your guys out to fight.
Just who's your champion?
Yeah, exactly.
Send him forth.
And that whole system of fighting that way and doing that is kind of, of that time and past that time of doing it.
Yep.
Which makes
What
sense.
era was that? Because that's the same thing that happened with David.
Mm-hmm.
He was out there taunting them.
Yeah, that's what they were.
Send us out your best.
Nope.
Yeah, that's how they used to fight.
So you believe that there's giants still out there? I still believe that there's giants out there.
I do. I believe there's pockets in mountains and in certain areas. And I think there are some places where the people know of them and allow them to live in peace and respect them. Because again, I'm not saying I don't believe they're all evil like that.
Yeah.
Not any more evil than anyone else who's born.
Antarctica would be a good place.
I think they would have to be, I think they, like used to be, they would be raised probably in a community. Mm-hmm. And they were taught that way. Here's who we are. Here's what we do.
Yeah.
Now, like you're saying,
Survival.
outcast. I don't even know why am I like this?
Yeah.
I don't even know what's happening.
Yeah. And
Why are these Marines shooting at me? I'm
Right.
just trying to get a meal. Where's the sheep?
Yeah, a lot of people will theorize that Antarctica is a place where they're able to kind of like have their colonies.
Because we can't fly over it.
Yeah, because
They live underground.
there's no unauthorized travel. I think below the
Ooh, Hollow Earth.
below the 60th parallel, something like that.
What if they're in Hollow Earth?
Yeah, that's another theory.
There's been rumors that there are giants and Nephilim that are kept alive down there in Antarctica, down there in those subchambers for experimentation. That's been recorded.
Well,
on
I mean, I
multiple-
wonder if there's anybody alive that unloaded their clip on this guy in Kandahar. They can talk about this.
There's always been like a friend of a friend.
can talk
Every
about it.
every story I've ever read has been like a friend of a friend. Well, I know the guy who was in the.
I have a
know
buddy.
the guy who was there.
What?
My buddy over
Yeah.
here.
I heard this while I was there from somebody I trust who was there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they had to sign like NDAs basically.
Well,
You'll get Clintoned if they were to say.
oh,
something, no,
yeah,
you know they
dude,
would.
the body count.
Dude,
Yep.
you would.
You get Vince fostered.
Yeah.
And at that, they would walk up and do it in public and be like, "Killed himself,
Yeah.
killed himself. We're good." So y'all saw that, right?
George Floyded.
Yeah, right.
So Byron and Jason, do you guys think there are still giants out there?
I haven't seen a giant, but since I know that they existed and we have record manuscripts that they did exist, and then we have stories, pocket stories going around in the earth right now that somebody has seen one, somebody has shot one, somebody, Native Indians did it, I'd have to say that they are still out there. I just haven't seen them, but I have no evidence or I have nothing to make me think that they are not here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just because I haven't seen them, I can't say that they're not here because of all this evidence.
So you're open to it?
Yes.
And I don't trust the Smithsonian at all.
Not at all.
Oh,
But I still
heck
want to go
no.
back next time I
You-
go to DC. So don't,
Oh, I'm
don't
definitely
blacklist
going.
me.
I'm going this summer.
Don't blacklist me. I want to go next time I'm there.
Yeah.
Dude, ask them where they got the giants.
Right.
I want to tell.
Hey, where do
I
you
want
keep the giants?
Like, is there a bottom chamber?
What if the dude's
Right.
like, hey, bro, come here. I'm going to show
Yeah,
you.
listen. Hey, look, we have a sub basement.
Studio 33.
Yeah.
Club 33.
Giants or no giants?
I'm open to it.
Open to the idea? Okay.
I'm open to it.
I think there are giants. I'm not just.
I think
open
once
to
I
it.
get done
I think
with this Genesis, unpacking, I'll be
Read Dr. Michael Heiser,
Michael Heiser.
The Unseen Realm.
Okay.
If you want to watch it. So they turned that was his rest in peace, Dr. Heiser. He passed away like a month ago of cancer. But he's the one who got me hooked on this was his teachings. And his whole goal is to try to bring the current reader into the biblical worldview reader and how they view it.
Yeah.
So he breaks it all down, starting with the beginning time
Yeah.
of Revelation.
Yeah.
So he's got the Naked Bible podcast, or he's got the Unseen Realm book. He's got a book on demons, angels. Then they turn the Unseen Realm into a movie. So it's like an hour and a half long documentary, which I have an account downloaded. If you want it, let me know. Did you end up watching it?
Which one?
The Unseen Realm?
No, you
I sent
didn't.
you that. I thought I'd sent it to you.
No, I just got the Shamgar.
The Shamgar one. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. If y'all want to check that out, let me know. It's really, really good. But it'll, especially if you're going back through the Old Testament and especially in Genesis, I think you'd get a lot out of it, like the way he unpacks
Yeah.
it. It
Okay,
would
I'll-
provide
yeah.
some insight. I'm
Yeah,
not saying that
shoot
would
me-
be
shoot
the
me
way.
his
Did you
name,
say you're reading
text.
Enoch too?
Yeah, I have the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, my buddy.
Yeah, I think that's a good parallel. You should just because it
Together.
corroborates. It goes good together.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
he
I'm,
mentions.
I'm open to them. I don't know yet, but I'm not saying they
Because
don't.
Enoch was, and then he was not.
And Heiser will be the first one to tell you he believes giants walk the earth, but his term of giant is like the 10 to 15 foot variety. He's like, you're not going to ever hear me teach or think that there were 20 foot, 40 foot, 50 foot giants walking this earth. I'm sorry. He said, I just can't go that far, But he was like, but what I can prove and what I can tell through translation is that we've had it all wrong. And it's because they were scared of it. People were scared of it because it was supernatural. And if you couldn't justify it in this world, people didn't want to teach it.
Yeah, I get it.
So his whole goal is to unpack that to where pastors and people and believers aren't scared of the supernatural, but they embrace it to supplement the faith they already have. So he's a phenomenal teacher.
Mike, how do you
That's
feel?
awesome.
How do you feel about all this information?
Yeah, what do you got? The Nephilim.
I'm into it.
I think we got to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
This is fun, man. I
It's
love what you guys are doing.
definitely happening.
Yeah.
Dude, but you can go you can talk about how the Nephilim are tied into the Federal Reserve through the Illuminati and how the Illuminati and the Federal Reserve banking system are pushing the Nephilimic agenda, which is driving us further towards the end time.
The one world.
I mean, there's so many different ways that this goes. Like once you just start looking at, the basic point right here. My enjoyment and my pleasure is usually in the more historical stuff. I don't dig too much into as far as the current agendas and what's going on. freaks me out, man.
Mhm.
Like I'll do it and I'll do it, but I don't actively search it. But if I see how it ties in, but I dig a lot more into the history side on the back end. So,
Yeah.
but like the CERN lab and what they're doing, like have y'all talked about them?
Not yet.
I don't
think
remember
that's on-
hearing about it on your show.
No, not yet.
Yeah, we should for sure.
Put it on the
I
catalog.
think that's on our catalog.
Holy
We've talked about
crap.
that.
What?
having it on the
Portal,
catalog.
Stargate.
CERN. I think we've had talked about
Have
it.
we?
Talk
Yeah, they
about
are-
having it on the
they
catalog.
Oh,
are
yeah.
blatantly and openly trying to open a portal to the other world.
Yeah.
Like that would be the easiest way to break them out of jail. Just transport
Well,
them
sure.
there.
I think, like what you just mentioned with the Federal Reserve, the elites, the globalists, the Nephilim agenda is basically they know their time is, they know where they're going.
The Nephilim agenda is a one world agenda. Same thing.
Their goal, hey, let's make the Christians as miserable as possible before we're out of here.
Oh, and that's scriptural because Jesus says,
You know what I'm
if they
saying?
hated me, they're going to hate you even more.
Let's
so
make
in the
them as
last days.
miserable as possible. Let's make them get rid of their cash,
I'll go one further.
electric cars,
I don't think this generation
can't get out of your home.
This generation of Christians has never even had to deal with that kind of political pressure as a
Oh,
believer.
heck no.
And I think that's going to be the challenge to the church and to all of us. And it's why I think you'll see a lot
What do you
of
mean,
people-
like in America?
Yeah. They're not used to religious persecution.
Right.
So we're going to have it and have to face it like we never have.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the shooting a couple of days ago. They're not
Yeah.
wanting to charge it as a hate crime. How?
Right.
She went in after a pastor's daughter.
You mean it?
Pat went after anyone. who's
It's
of
Pat.
age
Nobody knows
does.
that reference.
You got me.
So going back
But they
to
don't
our,
even want to charge that a hate crime. That just
Yeah.
it's starting. Like as a
Yeah.
Christian, you're already an outcast.
going back
Yeah.
to our secret society saga that we did.
Right.
We had a hierarchy of like secret societies that
We
were
did.
from on the top. Who did we label on the top?
I think we put the Illuminati.
Illuminati.
Yeah.
So with that being said, there is another hierarchy of a bloodline, which would be Nephilim, right?
The Nephilimic. But the Nephilimic bloodlines tie it to the Illuminati. You can't be in the Illuminati unless you can
Right.
prove a Nephilimic bloodline.
Their agenda, without the title of Illuminati, that is the I guess the club that you would have to.
Yeah, so all
Subscribe
of those secret societies are pushing that same agenda. So they're all
Yeah, they're all-
they're
all
all
the webs are-
effectively working towards
Right.
what the Nephilim want, and that's the Nephilim agenda. So yeah, if you view it like that, they're here.
Yeah,
Then everyone else is
Down there.
supporting this agenda here in various ways.
we just cracked the case.
But if you
Yeah.
pull,
Yeah,
I mean,
getting marching orders and stuff
I
like
think
there's
so.
a counterfeit for everything, right? It's set up just like the church. There's a head, Christ. There's multiple types of churches and within Christianity, different beliefs. Again, the peripherals, as long as it doesn't take you away from the faith, I think there's something for everybody. If you're straight heretical or like blaspheming, I don't consider you a part of this. But like spirit-filled, like who believe in Jesus, Catholics, Baptist, Protestant, like I think all those denominations, just like all of these secret societies, we're all serving the same purpose of
Right.
pushing the gospel and expanding the church, whereas they're trying to expand the Nephilim agenda.
And the hierarchy is Satan going down.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And it's-
Luciferian.
and it's mirrored, just like everything. Everything that he's
It's a
not
cheap
smart enough to
imitation.
do anything himself. He mirrors everything that God does
Because you can't create.
because he can't create.
Right.
So if you think about it like that, it's set up the
Yeah.
same way. So the church has a very real battle on its hands. Like you joined the church, you are handpicked, called out. You're now battling against this agenda. And Paul and Peter, the whole New Testament are so open and honest about the spiritual warfare aspect of
Yeah.
being a believer. They try to call it as honest and open as they can.
Yeah,
Because
your
it's the real
eternal
deal.
life is secure, but I'm going to make it hell right now for you,
Yeah.
bro.
It's
But I'm
crazy.
going to fight back. Hey, Jacob, I thank you so much for joining us on the show today. It was a blast talking about the Nephilim. You guys got any final thoughts?
No, this was awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for
thank you, guys.
joining us. I've got nothing else. We all believe giants are here.
Yes. I love what y'all are doing, by the way. Keep doing it.
No
Thank you, sir.
problem, dude.
Keep pursuing truth.
Hey, make sure you follow us. If you pay for Spotify, you can hit the follow button. If you subscribe on Apple, make sure you click the review button. Give us a 5-star, a 1-star if you don't like it, but I'd prefer a 5-star. And write us a review if you like us. Okay. And if you're listening on YouTube, Rumble, and BitChute, and you like this episode, please share, like, and subscribe, and leave a comment. If you're listening on any other podcasting platforms, please follow, turn on notifications so you never miss when we publish an episode. If you did not like this episode, I thank you for listening this long. And tune in next week when you might hear Jacob say,
Huh?